sipping on the last gulp from my beer this Saturday night in my sad little apartment in El Paso, I couldn't help but marvel at how far I'd fallen. Moved here years back from my mama's place, also in El Paso, which is funny if you think about it. Just moved 10 blocks east and called it Independence. She still sends casseroles like I'm 5. I'm slumped on the couch, flicking through channels, pretending to laugh at whatever nonsense Steve Harvey's spewing about family advice. God bless him, but he's got no idea what my family looks like. Honestly, half the time I think I'm just acting sane. You know, like a performance. Smile here, not there. Don't scream about the things you saw in Nevada. Don't mention the claws. Don't ruin the party. Out the window, I can hear my neighbors grilling carne asada. Kids are screaming about Fortnite and some poor chihuahua named Tito is getting chased across someone's lawn. Everyone's got their families, their normalcy, their lives with PTA meetings, pumpkin spice, and Netflix binging. Meanwhile, I'm here with a .9mm Glock, a rusted hunting knife, and a fridge that smells like expired onions. Maybe I'm the weird one. Or maybe they just haven't seen what I've seen. Oh shit, where was I? That mad bastard Edgar. My partner in this story of pain, blood, and supernatural headaches. See, it all really started not long ago, just a few weeks back in fact, when I walked into Edgar's compound and saw Ragnar, the big pit bull, lying in a pool of his own blood. That vampire didn't just pay us a visit, it left a goddamn message. Mr. Edgar was bandaged to the elbow, still bleeding, telling me this business doesn't give second chances. You either learn fast or end up 6 feet under without a name. He handed me a sniper rifle with Lapua rounds and a UV laser attachment, threw me some gas grenades filled with silver dust, and said, "Show me your best shot." And I did. Wasn't great, wasn't awful. He said it would do. That night we set traps. We waited for the bastard to come back. It would. They always do. And that, dear reader, was how I officially stepped into the cryptid hunting business. Flash forward to this sad beer-sipping moment of mine, in December 2020, still in El Paso. It's colder than usual. My neighbor's Christmas lights blink like a disco ball run by toddlers, and I've got my gear lined up in the closet like I'm prepping for a zombie apocalypse. Which, to be fair, isn't far from the truth. My apartment is a studio nightmare. The kind of place where the heater clicks like a Geiger counter and the walls are thin enough to hear Ms. Ramirez upstairs yelling at her grandson in full novella mode. My mattress is older than my military record, and my kitchen smells permanently like burnt popcorn and bad decisions. Edgar's warehouse is still the same Frankenstein of horror memorabilia. Smells like gun oil, pitiful whiskey, and secrets. I've spent enough nights there now to know how haunted that damn place is, figuratively and probably literally. There's a Wendigo skull next to a freezer full of unknown meat. UV lights line the rafters. The pit bulls still sniff me like I'm the new guy, which I am, but at least they stopped growling. Every corner of that warehouse screams classified. Some of the jars hold body parts. Others? Well, I stopped asking after I saw something blink at me from inside. There's a weapon rack with enough firepower to make the ATF nervous, and a chalkboard filled with scribbled notes on folklore, lunar cycles, and attack patterns. Edgar treats it like a war room. And it kind of is. By day, I keep the act going. Pretend I'm just another guy with bills and back pain. I eat breakfast tacos, nod at neighbors, and wave at Mr. Torres who thinks I'm in private security. By night, I sharpen knives, clean silver rounds, and memorize pages from Edgar's field journals. You ever read about a chupacabra autopsy? It's not something you forget. The drawings alone could kill your appetite for a week. The neighborhood's clueless. Mrs. Johnson next door still thinks I work for FedEx. She offered to set me up with her niece who makes great tortillas and needs a strong man. I said I was emotionally unavailable and allergic to corn. Both lies, but I couldn't risk someone getting close, not in this line of work. The closer they get, the easier they die. But deep down, I know what's coming. The first hunt's only the beginning. The vampire was just a test, some twisted entry exam into this world of freaks and fang-bearers. Edgar says there's more. Dogmen in the desert, wendigos in the forest. Maybe it followed us from Nevada. Sometimes I still hear Rick's voice. My old partner. The one the dogman ripped from this world like a child tears a doll. That desert scream, the one I can't unhear, it keeps echoing, especially on nights like this when the beer's warm and the silence stretches too long. You ever feel like the world's running on borrowed time? Like there's a countdown clock ticking behind everything and no one else hears it? That's what cryptid hunting does to you. Turns your senses up and your sanity down. Makes you paranoid. But sometimes, paranoia is the only reason you live to see tomorrow. So yeah, buckle up, grab a drink, lock the doors. This ex-corporal turned cryptid hunter has stories to tell and monsters to kill. By the time I laced my boots that night, the sky over El Paso was bleeding purple. You ever seen the desert sky just before something awful happens? It doesn't scream, it just watches. Like it knows you're about to be mulch, and it's fine with that. Edgar was already in full lunatic mode, pacing the warehouse like a drunk general. He'd cleared out the West Wing, if you could call it that, and laid out an armory that would make John Wick blush. No music, no radio, just the sound of cleaning rods through gun barrels and Edgar muttering like a priest at a satanic yard sale. He threw me a silver-plated combat knife without looking. That one's been blessed by a defrocked priest from Juarez. Don't ask questions. Don't worry, I said. I only ask questions when my intestines are on the sidewalk. He grunted, tossing a pair of custom-made garlic silver grenades onto the table. They looked like they were built in a meth lab. Yellow tape, old Christmas ornament shells, and the kind of smell that could empty a Waffle House during Sunday brunch. These things go off, the bastard's gonna think he walked into a Catholic taco stand, Edgar said. I geared up. Glock, Lapua sniper, UV flares, knife, and one pair of silver knuckles that felt like I'd just put brass on theology. What's the plan? I asked. Edgar lit a cigarette with a blowtorch because of course he did. Simple. We bait the alley behind the meat packing plant. That's where Ragnar got hit. I lay trip mines and UV sensors. You go rooftop and watch for movement. If it screams like a baby, don't help. If it begs like a nun, don't help. If it tells you your mama misses you, definitely don't help. Vampires can talk? I asked. Some mimic. You ever hear your dead buddy's voice in the dark? That's not PTSD. That's the son of a bitch screwing with you. I blinked, comforting. Edgar nodded like a man who's long since run out of comfort. Speed like a cheetah on Adderall. Strength like a junkyard baler. Reflexes? You blink, you're dead. That's why you shoot first and regret it later. By the time we were locking up, the streets were back to their usual sitcom. Across the street, the Gonzalez family was grilling carne asada like they weren't living next to an arsenal of monster slang. The neighbor kid zoomed by on his skateboard yelling something about a Twitch stream, and Ms. Ramirez was yelling at her telenovela in full-volume Spanish opera. Meanwhile, I'm stuffing silver grenades into my vest, thinking, if any of you knew what's crawling your gutters tonight, you'd be sobbing in a Home Depot panic room. We pulled up to the kill zone just after midnight. Old meatpacking plant, rusted gates. Stank of mildew and bad history. Edgar got out first, carrying a duffel bag that sounded like it was filled with weapons and bowling pins. He set up traps like a man decorating for a party no one survives. UV motion sensors hidden in trash cans. Garlic mist sprayers attached to tripwires. Even a decoy dummy filled with cow blood and wrapped in my old army jacket. Just in case it remembers your scent, Edgar grunted. Oh good, I said. My cologne's now cow intestines. I climbed the rooftop across the alley, 3 stories up, sniper in hand, freezing my ass off under the El Paso moon. The sniper rifle felt like a steel promise. Lapua rounds, silver core, punch like a freight train dipped in holy water. Edgar crackled over the comms. You in position? Yeah, got a cat chewing on a pizza crust 2 stories down. Otherwise clear. He laughed dryly. Eyes open, things get weird before they get bloody. The next 20 minutes were quiet. Too quiet, even the wind held its breath. I watched the alley like a priest watches a confessional, waiting for something unspeakable to step inside. Then I heard it. Crying, soft, fragile, like a child lost in the dark. Edgar's voice snapped through the comms, tight as a tripwire. Don't move, that's not real. The crying got louder. Closer, a little girl's voice now. Mister? Please, I lost my mommy. My finger twitched near the trigger. Jesus. Don't even say his name, Edgar growled. That thing is wearing pain like perfume, hold steady. My eyes scanned the alley, adjusting to every shadow. Then movement, a shape darted past the dumpster, too fast to clock, like static come alive. I clicked off the safety. Visual, fast, left side. A grenade went off. Garlic mist sprayed the air like someone set a Taco Bell on fire with napalm. Something hissed, definitely not human. Contact! Edgar shouted. Then I saw it. 10 feet tall if it was an inch. Skin like scorched leather. Eyes glowing faint red like lit coals deep in a pit. Its mouth stretched back in a snarl that didn't match the fake girl voice it had used just seconds earlier. It moved toward Edgar, fast and fluid like a nightmare on ice. I squeezed the trigger. The Lapua round hit it in the shoulder with the kind of force that usually ends conversations. It shrieked, raw and animal. But it didn't go down. Hit! I barked. Still moving. Edgar rolled, tossed a grenade, and pulled out his knife in one move. That was a warning shot, asshole, he screamed at the beast. You ever wonder how it feels when you're in a firefight? I know most of you haven't even shot a gun outside of a range birthday party or Call of Duty with Dorito fingers. So let me educate you. When you're in real combat, there ain't any of that slow-motion Hollywood crap. Your brain locks in, your body moves like it's got its own damn Wi-Fi connection to instinct. No hesitation, no wrong moves, you're trained. You're not thinking about dying. You're thinking about outliving everything that's trying to end you. And that was exactly the feeling when this fawn-faced bastard came out of the shadows like a missile wearing a trench coat. It didn't announce itself with any corny hiss or dramatic monologue either. Just a sound. Something human but off. Like a baby crying but through a cracked speaker. Then silence. Then the sucker dove at us from the rooftop like it thought it was Batman. Our weapons were already hot. Edgar had the UV spotlight and garlic silver grenades lined like poker chips on a rig table. I had my sniper rifle locked, breathing steady, brain on autopilot. The thing's eyes caught the moonlight as it dropped, black like oil, no soul behind them. That's when Edgar gave the signal, take the damn shot. I squeezed, one breath, one trigger pull, straight to the chest, like threading a needle through a heart full of sin. The vampire screamed like a freight train dying. It spiraled midair, wings thrashing like tarps in a tornado, and then it fell. Straight into the alley behind Edgar's warehouse, flattening a busted shopping cart and knocking over our bait trap made of pig's blood and pheromones. But it didn't stay down. That's when Edgar lit it up like the 4th of July meta-garlic farm. He lobbed the first grenade, a homemade cocktail of garlic resin, powdered silver, and some sort of holy water mix he probably stole from a church in Juarez. The explosion didn't go boom, it went whomp, like the air itself got punched in the chest. The vampire screeched and flailed, smoke pouring off its skin like barbecue gone demonic. Its wings caught fire, and its hands, those twisted, multi-jointed nightmares, tried to claw its way up the alley wall. Hell no, I muttered, racking another round. Edgar tossed 2 more grenades like he was feeding pigeons at a war memorial. One bounced off the vampire's head and exploded midair, showering the alley with shimmering silver dust. To an outsider, it might have looked like a rave from hell. Strobe lights, smoke, screaming. Mrs. Delgado next door opened her window, screamed something about the cartel, and slammed it shut with enough force to rattle her Virgin de Guadalupe figurine. Someone down the block shouted, "Y'all better not be lightin' fireworks again. It's not even Christmas yet." Meanwhile, Edgar calmly pulled out a combat knife longer than most people's forearms. He flipped it once, caught it backward, and walked toward the flaming mess like a man approaching a clogged toilet, disgusted but determined. "Cover me," he said. I moved to the side, eye on the rooftops. That's when I caught a flutter, a blur of movement. Another one? No, just a trash bag catching wind. Or so I told myself. The vampire, now mostly charred meat and rage, tried one last trick. Its voice changed. Deep, soft, familiar. "Help, it's me, Rick." I froze. For a moment, my finger twitched off the trigger. But Edgar didn't. He drove that blade into the vampire's skull like he was spearing a fish. Blood hissed on the concrete like soda hitting a hot skillet. The body twitched, then slumped. We stood there for a few seconds, breathing heavy. Edgar, bleeding from a slice on his bicep. Me, shaking off the illusion. It hadn't been Rick. Just some mental voodoo vampires do to make you drop your guard. Bastards play dirty. We burned the body. Not just a toss it in the trash kind of thing. Edgar wheeled out a metal barrel and dumped the corpse inside like yesterday's mistakes. Poured lighter fluid over it like it was a Texas brisket, then struck a match. The fire cracked and popped, bits of bone twisting in the heat. The smell was unholy, like someone deep-fried a corpse in old holy water and sadness. "You don't want it regenerating," Edgar said, wiping blood from his hands. "These things can pull themselves back together from a jawbone if you're lazy." I stared into the flames and muttered, "Kinda wish it stayed down after the first shot." "They never do. That's the fun part," Edgar smirked. "By the way, that was a good shot. You hesitated." I heard Rick's voice. He nodded slowly. "It always knows what you lost. That's why we never hunt alone." We stood there, watching the last bits of ash swirl into the night sky like evil snowflakes. The alley stank of scorched evil and singed garlic. Somewhere, Tito the Chihuahua barked at nothing. As we cleaned up, Edgar found something in the vampire's jacket. A medallion, black stone etched with runes that looked way older than the Bible. He didn't say a word, just pocketed it. "You think this was it?" I asked. "The one that attacked us?" Edgar shook his head. "No, this was a scout. They always send scouts first." I didn't like the way he said it. Like we just swatted a mosquito while a hurricane was rolling in. "You got more of those garlic bombs?" I asked. He grinned, "Got a whole fridge full. And something new I've been working on. Silver knuckle dusters dipped in holy oil. In case it gets personal." Edgar said, "Clan-marked scout. This one wasn't hunting for food. It was mapping the area." My gut turned. Mapping it for what? Edgar looked at me like I just asked if water was wet. "An invasion, son. This ain't Dracula's solo tour. That bastard was sending coordinates to its family reunion." Back at the warehouse, Edgar laid vampire bones on a steel table while I wiped vampire blood off my boots with an old Guns N' Roses t-shirt, Priorities. He pulled down one of his ancient notebooks, the kind bound in actual skin, probably, and flipped to a page titled Known Symbols of the Cold Clans. The one on the medallion matched something last seen in 1987, Anchorage. An attack at a remote radar outpost. No survivors. "You said they were dead," I whispered. Edgar raised an eyebrow. "No. I said they were sleeping, big difference." Suddenly the whole damn war felt a lot bigger. We ran a diagnostics check on the UV traps and got hit with static on one of the monitoring frequencies. It wasn't just white noise, it was layered. Buried under the crackling were rhythmic clicks and hisses, like someone gargling broken glass and whispering poetry in reverse. Recognize it? I asked. Yeah, Edgar said. Heard the same thing in Nevada once. Day before we found my old team torn apart. I'll get the priest. A few hours later, Father Hector arrived. Former Vatican monster hunter turned tequila enthusiast. He blessed the place with holy water that smelled more like rum and did a quick chant over the medallion. The thing sizzled, like it knew. Symbol of the thirsting path, Hector muttered. They don't feed like normal vamps. They induce fear and feast on the chemical reaction in the brain. Hallucinations, paranoia, screaming helps them digest. We packed up for recon. Edgar handed me a new piece of gear, a grenade launcher retrofitted to shoot silver, garlic, fuse dust canisters. Thing looked like it belonged in a Predator sequel. I call it the Festive Avenger, he said, because if you're going to kill something, kill it loud and with holiday spirit. I almost laughed, but then I remembered the vampire whispering in Rick's voice as it died. Bastard had the nerve to say, "Tell Mama I'm sorry." We hit the neighborhood after midnight. Streets empty. Christmas lights flickering like Morse code on a bad day. At first glance, everything looked normal, until you saw Mrs. Delgado staring out from her porch. No coffee mug, no chihuahua, just stillness. I waved, she didn't wave back. Rick just died in the desert. Pulled off his AV by that black-furred hell beast, guts ripped out, leaving me standing like a goddamn statue, frozen and useless. How pathetic is that? But if anything, that miserable moment drilled into me what I'm really made for. Rick's voice haunts me, croaky, broken, something that won't ever leave me till I'm 6 feet under. You know that one thing in life that makes you light a cigarette just to breathe? Yeah, so here I am, smoking one, while the rain drums outside, and I try to remember where the hell I was. "Shake it off, kid, that woman's not human," Edgar muttered. My spine froze. What the fuck? What do you mean? I scanned her last night. Cold as a mortuary slab. That thing crawled into her skin and set up shop. We didn't approach. Not yet. Not until we had backup. But when we scanned the area with UV goggles, we caught it, a brief flicker on the roof across the street. A shape, humanoid, it was scanning the neighborhood. Another scout? I asked. No, it's different, Edgar said, cocking his shotgun. That one's a captain. The neighborhood had that fake calm feeling like the kind you get right before the power goes out during a storm. The street lights flickered like they were on borrowed time, and the faint smell of grilled meat from somebody's barbecue mingled with something else, something sharp and wrong that made my skin crawl. Kids played soccer on the sidewalk, laughing loud enough to drown out any creepy shadows lurking behind hedges. Mrs. Delgado sat on her porch, knitting like she was waiting for a normal Tuesday, completely unaware that something was hunting her from inside her own skin. Or maybe she was just waiting for the damn mailman, which in El Paso felt like a paranormal event itself. Edgar nudged me. They don't know a damn thing, do they? I shook my head, trying to imagine their lives without knowing the midnight horrors stalking their streets. It was like they were extras in some shitty B-movie where the monsters didn't bother showing up until the credits rolled. Here's the deal, Edgar said, voice low enough that if the neighbors were paying attention they'd swear we were talking about the weather. Vampire captains like this one? They're a whole different breed from the usual bloodsuckers. I gave him my best, explain it like I'm a 5-year-old look, and he didn't disappoint. First off, these fuckers can mimic voices and sounds, like a cheap ventriloquist. So if you hear your kid crying at midnight or your dog howling like a banshee, it might not be what you think. He pointed to a spot across the street where a flickering porch light barely lit a shadow moving in unnatural jerks. They use that to mess with your head, draw you out, separate you from the herd. You think you're safe with the neighbors around? That's exactly what they want. I rubbed my jaw. So we're talking high-speed, sound-bending nightmare clowns. Exactly, Edgar grinned like a maniac who just invented a new kind of hell. And they're smart, like chess players who prefer knives over pawns. He held up one of the homemade grenades. The thing looked like a science project gone rogue, metal casing covered in dried garlic bits and silver flakes, with a fuse that smelled faintly of tequila and burning rubber. This little bastard? Silver, garlic, and some of my own special dust. When it goes off, it's like Christmas and Halloween had a messy divorce party. Makes em scream like banshees on a bad acid trip. I eyed the grenade like it might explode in my hand, but I was learning fast. No room for second-guessing in this game. Edgar's hands moved with practiced ease as he slung a combat knife at his belt and slipped a pair of silver knuckles over his fingers. If this mission goes south, and it will, we get up close and personal. I grinned despite myself. Great, so if the grenades don't kill it, we punch it to death, classy. He shrugged. Old school never dies. We found a spot on the edge of the block to set up surveillance, an empty garage with a busted window that gave us a clear view of the street and the rooftops. Between Edgar's gear and my military training, we were like a couple of predators in the shadows. The UV goggles flickered on. The night glowed in unnatural blues and greens, every shadow revealing shapes and movements invisible to the naked eye. Look there, Edgar whispered, pointing to a figure perched on a rooftop. The vampire captain was watching us, its eyes glinting like molten silver, muscles coiled for the kill. It's almost like it knows we're watching, I said. Of course it does. These bastards have reflexes that make a sniper jealous. Blink and you're dead. The night felt like a cage tightening around us. Every streetlight that blinked out was a countdown clock ticking toward disaster. I kept thinking about Rick, about the desert, about how I froze like a dumbass while the hell beast dragged him away. That failure fueled me now, like a lit fuse burning through my veins. Why'd you pick me for this, Edgar? I asked, voice low. He looked at me like I just asked why the sky was blue. Because you're the guy who didn't run when it all went to hell. Because you survived. Survival wasn't luck. It was scars and ghosts and a stubborn refusal to die quietly. Hours crawled by as we watched the neighborhood slip into a weird kind of sleep. The vampire captain didn't move much, but every so often, a flicker here or a twitch there suggested it was testing the waters, waiting for the right moment. Suddenly, a car door slammed down the street. A woman's voice called out, a faint scream that sounded too close to my sister's laugh to be coincidence. Edgar snapped his head toward the sound. Did you hear that? Yeah, that wasn't human. That's the captain, working its magic. The woman, or whatever she was, disappeared behind a hedge. We stayed put, watching. Every nerve screamed. Remember, kid, Edgar said, loading his shotgun. They don't just bite. They take over. Make you a puppet. And if you get close, they'll tear you apart with a smile. It started raining at 1:23 a.m. That's soft Texas kind of rain, where the air turns to soup and the water hits the pavement like it's apologizing for existing. We crouched in that busted-out garage, eyes on the block like junkyard dogs, just waiting for a reason to snap. The street looked too calm. Rain softened everything. The Christmas lights strung across the houses blinked in random patterns, like drunk Morse code. A plastic reindeer deflated slowly in someone's yard, looking more like a corpse than a decoration. Then there were the cats. There's a local gang of strays that hang out on the rooftops, always yowling, always fighting. Not tonight. Tonight they lined up like little sentries, tails twitching, backs arched, all staring at the same damn spot. Right at the house with Mrs. Delgado and her corpse temperature smile. Cats no, Edgar muttered, lighting a cigarette with the casual flair of a man who'd made peace with the Reaper. Old instinct. When evil's nearby, they feel it in their whiskers. I watched one orange tabby hiss toward the roof. Then it bolted like its tail was on fire. We had 3 UV traps set up, one on the west end near the hedges, one across the street under a mailbox, and the third hanging like a motion-sensitive lantern from the garage roof. All connected to the same military-grade sensor rig. Edgar had Frankenstein together from parts that probably belonged in Area 51. He fiddled with the sensors like a surgeon with Parkinson's, muttering numbers and signal strengths to himself. "Grid's holding," he said. "Any movement over 15 pounds will see it." "Unless it floats," I added. He paused. "They can't float." "You sure?" 80%. We cracked a couple beers, nothing fancy, just warm Shiner Bock from the back of Edgar's truck, and leaned against the windowsill. Rain tapped on the roof like a nervous heartbeat. "You ever do anything before this?" I asked. He looked at me sideways. "Yeah. I used to be somebody." He took a long drag and stared out at the street. "Nevada, 2003, my team was Delta. Real hush-hush. Officially, we weren't even supposed to exist. We were on a black op near Groom Lake. Some mining site. No idea why we were there. Just coordinates and a job. Get in, secure the area, extract intel." He paused to sip the beer. "Except what we found wasn't intel. It was a goddamn nest." "A vampire nest?" He nodded. "Only we didn't know that. Looked like corpses at first. Wrapped in silk. Hanging from the ceiling like butcher's meat. Then the sun set." I didn't interrupt. 14 of us went in. Only I walked out. The rest? Torn up. Gutted. Some worse. We hit 'em with every goddamn round we had. Silver didn't even slow them down. They moved like shadows with teeth. He lit another smoke off the first. I radioed evac. Nothing, static. Then out of nowhere, this white van pulls up. No markings inside. 3 suits, government types. Didn't even look surprised to see me covered in blood. They just handed me a water bottle and a new mission brief. Just like that. Just like that. They didn't care about the team. They cared about containment. And they needed people like me, people who'd seen the dark and didn't blink. So I joined the other war. The quiet one. We sat in silence for a minute, the beer going flat in my hand. "You miss them?" I asked. "Every night," he said. The rain grew heavier. One of the UV traps crackled, briefly, a faint burst, like a bug zapper getting nervous. I snapped up my goggles. The street was empty, but the cats were gone. "Something moved," I whispered. Edgar was already loading a fresh mag into his festive Avenger. We scanned every rooftop, every hedge, every porch. That strange calm had returned, the kind you get before a really bad dream. And then, through the drizzle, something stepped out onto the sidewalk. A tall figure, pale skin, wearing a tattered hoodie like it had just come back from a war it didn't lose. In its mouth dangled a limp, soaking wet cat. The same orange tabby from earlier. The vampire captain dropped the cat like a peace offering, then raised its head. Its eyes glowed faint silver in the dark, unblinking, full of hunger and calculation. Edgar muttered something in Latin. I reached for my blade. The bastard didn't flinch. It walked forward. It strolled toward us like it was on a damn date, dripping rainwater and menace. You ever seen someone so confident they make standing still look like a threat? That's what this thing was. "Stay sharp," Edgar muttered, stepping sideways to trigger the UV perimeter's manual override. A click, then the sensor grid snapped to life with a faint high-pitched hum. We were caged in UV arcs now, subtle blue light bending across the yard like some sci-fi spiderweb. The vampire took one more step and stopped. It saw the light, and smiled. "Is it smiling?" I asked. "Yeah," Edgar said, drawing his sidearm. "Means it knows the game started." We didn't wait. Edgar fired first, 3 silver-tipped slugs, center mass. The thing blurred. Not moved. Blurred. Like you blinked and it forgot the laws of physics. The rounds hit nothing but air. I dropped low and swept a UV flare into the puddle ahead of it. The flare hissed, burst, light crackling across the wet street. The vampire screeched, its hoodie catching fire at the edges like flash paper. But it didn't run. It charged. I got one clean shot off, blade across its ribs. Felt like slicing wet stone. It grabbed me by the collar and flung me like a chew toy. My back hit the garage wall so hard the air left my lungs like an unpaid bill. Edgar kept firing, switching to phosphorus rounds. One tagged it in the leg. It stumbled, gave a howl, then vanished behind the hedge. Not gone. Just repositioning. UV Trap 2 is still hot, Edgar growled. Keep him moving that way. I stumbled upright, tasting blood and regret. You flank I bait? He nodded. I sprinted across the driveway, flashlight on strobe, making myself the loudest damn idiot in the neighborhood. Sure enough, the thing took the bait, launched off the side of a mailbox like a parkour nightmare. But as it landed, boom, UV Trap 2 ignited. The vampire shrieked. Smoke burst from its skin like steam from a cracked engine. Edgar was already there, shotgun up, and he unloaded. Slugs punched into its torso, spraying black ichor across the pavement. The flare ignited inside it, UV and fire and pressure. The thing thrashed, then exploded into ash and chunks of burning meat. The rain hissed as it hit the smoldering pile. Cats reappeared, watching from rooftops again. The sentries back on duty. Edgar coughed, spat blood, then grinned at me. Delta's still got it. We sat there, soaked in vampire guts and suburban rain, breathing like war drums. But what the fuck? We have been hallucinating. The battle didn't even begin. Was it just messing with our heads? The captain didn't walk. It unfolded out of the shadows like it had always been part of the rain, like the night made space for it. And as it came forward, I swear reality broke. 1 second, Edgar and I were crouched behind the sensor grid, weapons drawn, UV humming, eyes sharp. The next second, it wasn't the street anymore. It was somewhere else. A desert, charred bones, smoke. I was in my old unit, everybody dead. And I was eating. Hands red, meat in my teeth. I blinked, nope, still there. I turned to Edgar. He had his Glock out, finger trembling, pointed at my head. Don't, I barked. He didn't blink. Just whispered, you're one of them. I slapped the gun from his hand, hard. Snap out of it, Edgar. That bastard's in our heads. He shook like a wet dog, spit blood, then looked at me like he'd just surfaced from drowning. Mental projection, he muttered. Advanced tier. Alpha-level predator. The vampire hadn't moved. Still halfway between shadow and light, watching. Smiling. We reset positions, but something was off. The air had gone wrong. Thicker, colder. Our tech flickered. The UV arcs that were steady blue now hummed like they were breathing. And then we followed it. Don't ask me why. Don't say we're stupid. It felt right. Like instinct, like gravity, like love. We left the traps, left the perimeter, left reason. The street was still alive with decorations, plastic Santas, inflatable snowmen, fairy lights draped on mailboxes. Laughter echoed from houses down the block. People were watching movies, eating cookies, opening presents. And we were hunting something that wasn't real. Or maybe we were the ones being hunted. We turned left at the corner, past a cul-de-sac where the rain hit like whispers. The lights here flickered. A black cat darted across our path, hissing. Only its eyes glowed bright orange, like embers. I saw something out of the corner of my eye, a woman in a wedding dress walking on the rooftop, barefoot, trailing a veil of blood. Gone when I turned. Edgar. I see it too, he said quietly. We reached a boarded-up building. Old apartments maybe. Abandoned, sagging with rot. The door had been barricaded with scrap wood and rusted tools. But the smell was something unnatural. Like wet iron, spoiled milk, and grave dirt. My stomach turned. Edgar froze. Back off. I blinked. What? His eyes were wide. This is a nest. This is where they sleep. They let us here, he said. This was never about Delgado. This was a trap. The captain wanted us away from the grid. I looked up. Every window was black. No light, no sound, but I felt eyes, lots of eyes, as if we were the center of attraction. Edgar gritted his teeth. Abort mission. This is ground zero. No way we're getting out of there alive. And then the laugh. It started low, like a breeze, then built into something impossible. Not a voice, not even laughter. From every shadow, every window, from inside our skulls. We turned and ran like rookies, like children, down the block, through the yards, jumping fences like the devil was behind us, because something was. I felt it snap at my back, cold fingers brushing my spine. Lights flickered as we passed. A wreath fell from a door. A mailbox burst open on its own. A baby cried somewhere. A cat screamed. We didn't stop, didn't breathe, didn't think. We just ran until the lights came back, the smell left our lungs, and the air felt like earth again. We collapsed near the truck. Rain pounding, hearts doing drum solos. The UV grid was still up. Edgar wiped his face. That wasn't a captain, he said slowly. I stared at him. Then what the hell was it? He didn't answer. The rain hadn't stopped. If anything, it sounded angrier, like the sky was arguing with the earth over what we'd just seen. We stumbled back into Edgar's house, half of it more bunker than home, stacked with weapon crates, steel-plated doors, UV batteries, and surveillance monitors. But even that felt thin tonight, like cardboard against wolves. The dogs, 3 of them, 2 Dutch shepherds and a scarred-up mutt with one eye, rushed over. Whimpering, tails stiff, not wagging. They knew. Animals always do. Edgar slammed the door and kicked a chair halfway across the room. It cracked against a table leg. God damn it, he roared. How did we fuck this up so bad? I dropped my gear onto the couch, chest still heaving. We walked into it. We followed it. It didn't even try to hide. He ran a hand through his drenched hair, eyes wild. We broke protocol. We let it lure us. Rule 1, no pursuit without confirmation. Rule 2, stealth before contact. Rule 3, no direct engagement with unknowns. Now it's seen us, I said. Both of us. He didn't answer, just looked at the rain streaking the armored windows. And it smiled. The UV perimeter was still up, thank God. Every 20 feet, a spike pulsed that faint blue, forming an invisible wall of light around the house. Not perfect, but enough to keep anything normal out. But this wasn't normal. Edgar dropped into a chair, stared at nothing. The dogs crowded near his boots. I need to make a call, he said. To who? He looked at me. People I hoped I'd never talk to again. But if this thing's tied to the old court, I need my old team. You said your team was dead. That team is. These guys, we call ourselves the Scorch Hounds. Ex-Delta. CIA dropouts. Monster hunters, mostly freelance. They'll come if I ask. I nodded. Do it? He opened a hardened sat phone case and dialed a number that had to be burned into his bones. While he spoke, I moved through the house, checking the defense grid, looking for gaps. Every door, every window. I wasn't going to sleep, neither of us were. The rain whispered secrets outside. It had rhythm, 3 drops, pause, 4, 1 over and over, like code. Edgar rejoined me in the hallway. They're coming. Might take a day or 2, depending where they are. In the meantime, he trailed off, then picked up a hammer. We fortify. We spent the next few hours reinforcing everything. Added a second perimeter, silver wire woven with garlic oil. Traps beneath the porch. Flares on tripwires. Holy water rigged to break like fire alarms if anything breached the outer wall. This ain't gonna stop a captain, I said, tightening a lock. Edgar muttered, but it might slow it down enough to kill it. We paused by the front door. Rain still poured, You know, I said, back there, that wasn't a vampire. Not like we've seen. Edgar nodded slowly. I know. What the hell was it? I saw something like it once, Nevada, 2013. Delta was running Black Ops in an old missile silo. Intel said there was a cult. When we breached, we found nothing human. He didn't look at me. My team, Mason, Dorsey, Kels, they all died in 10 seconds. Screaming, and not from claws or fangs. From their own minds. The thing didn't move. It projected, turned us inside out without lifting a finger. I swallowed. How'd you survive? I didn't. He walked off before I could ask more. At 2:11 a.m., the encrypted radio cracked. A voice like static filtered through, code black. Active nest discovered, El Paso, Tucson, Flagstaff, repeat, code black, operatives advised to hold ground. Await Angel drop clearance. Edgar's face went pale. Angel drop? I asked. He nodded. That's not reinforcements. That's glass the zone clearance. Top-level asset deployment. They send in the monsters to kill monsters. I didn't like the sound of that. Then we heard it. A metallic scrape on the hood of the truck outside. We grabbed weapons, checked the windows. Nothing visible. We stepped onto the porch. Wind howled. The truck glistened in the rain. Something was scratched into the hood. You are seen. You are invited. It was written in English and something older, angular, jagged symbols that shimmered under the UV. Edgar whispered, Old Court. He turned and walked inside without another word. 4:07 a.m. We tried to rest. The lights inside flickered. Crucifixes melted. One of the dogs began pacing in a perfect circle, growling. Rain still tapped that same rhythm on the window. I sat near the door, shotgun in hand. Edgar dozed in his chair, sidearm in his lap. Then we heard it. Bare footsteps on the road. We rushed to the window. A child, barefoot, pale, soaked in rain. Standing in the middle of the street, staring at the house. Edgar whispered, Don't open that door. The child opened her mouth and barked. We didn't move. Just sat in the dark, UV perimeter humming. Edgar finally whispered, We wait till daylight. Because anything else, anything before dawn, would get us killed. If you loved the second part of the story, I hunt monsters for a living. Do subscribe to our channel and keep supporting. It helps us grow. The next part of the storyline will be dropped soon. Thank you very much.